We are reacting to the Franke divorce. It's getting a little crazy out there. Let's go ahead and jump right into that. First, I guess we're going to go ahead and Ruby Franke, 5 revelations from divorce petition against disgraced YouTube mom. Let's check this out. I hear it's grotesque.
If there's one thing that those who are...
Can I just say something? Why does he look like me? Huh? I am blessed not to have that as my wife. Okay? And I'm blessed that this thing didn't torture my kids. But why does he look like me? All right, let's get into it.
We're watching today could take away from this workshop that'd be really simple, that I think could make massive improvements in your parenting and in your interactions with your children and with your spouse, and then is becoming aware and conscious of your motive.
What is he looking at? It looks like his eyes are closed. Nice guy. All right, let's do it.
Kevin Franke has filed for divorce from his wife, Ruby. Now let's dig deeper into the paperwork to understand what each side can and can't do.
By the way, in comments, real quick, in the chat, do you think he allowed his wife to do all that abuse? Did he encourage that abuse? Did he do that abuse himself? Was he forced by his wife to do this abuse? What do you guys think?
Including with respect to the kids. We get into it with divorce lawyer Randy Kessler. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. What an update we have for you in the Ruby Franke saga. Kevin Franke, the husband of accused child abuser Ruby Franke, has filed for divorce.
Yep.
Before we get into this any further, we did do a previous sidebar on the divorce very briefly when the news just broke, but we weren't really able to do a deep dive into it, which we are about to do. So we're going to get into more of the details, the key details in this divorce filing, or what we have of this filing, with famed Atlanta divorce attorney Randy Kessler in a minute. But first, I want to give you a little bit of backstory. So, Ruby Griffiths met Kevin Franke, and they got married, having their first child in 2003. Now, Kevin had graduated from Utah State University for undergrad and then got his graduate degree from Brigham Young University in civil engineering. He went on to teach engineering at BYU as an associate professor. Kevin and Ruby, they are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
When they said Brigham Young, by the way, Brigham Young was like one of the main members of the original Mormon church. When they said that, I was like, oh, these guys are straight up Mormons. And, you know, I obviously knew that she was Mormon, but I didn't know how super Mormon he was. And yet again, nothing wrong with being Mormon. Mormon's great. I have a lot of Mormon friends. And guess what? They don't abuse their children. She does. All right, let's get into it.
End up having
allegedly, she does.
6 children together.
Actually, allegedly, she does a lot.
They're Shari, Chad, Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve. So they're living in Utah. And you fast forward to 2015, Ruby and Kevin started a channel on YouTube called 8 Passengers. And the videos are all about their family and parenting, homeschooling, marriage. The channel became so popular that it had over 2 million subscribers. But those videos received a lot of...
Hey, everyone go subscribe to my YouTube. I've got, I don't have 2 million subscribers. I've got 72,000. So if you guys want to be a part of this journey, by the way, this whole thing will be up there. So there you go. Also, I will have secret codes because on Thursdays I do giveaways for V-Bucks. Has nothing to do with this. I'm just letting you know. Last winter was last Tuesday, and then they decided, hey, let's do it every Thursday. So we do it every Thursday now. Anyway.
Criticism. And he felt the way that the kids were being treated wasn't right. Give you an example. Here's Ruby talking about how her young daughter, who I believe was 6 years old at the time, didn't pack her lunch for school, and it's her fault.
I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch. And it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry.
And Frankie would defend herself from all this criticism.
Whoa! Hold on. Your 6-year-old, okay? Yeah, I'm sure you guys have dealt with 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds. That 6-year-old has to have enough responsibility to pack her. What was she doing? Okay? What was the dad doing? What was the mom doing? Okay, I packed my own lunch. She didn't pack a lunch. Could you bring her a lunch? No. She should be hungry. It's a 6-year-old. Come on.
Here's an example of a video where you can actually see Kevin in the video.
However, listening to all of your comments and your feedback, I think I understand where some people are coming from. They're like, oh, the parents don't give their kids beds. And I totally agree with that. I know there are lots of children out there whose parents are neglectful. We got accused of child abuse when we sent Chad to Anasazi. Guess what? The first thing that they did was take a bed away. They don't have beds. So Chad slept on the hard ground for months, and it's run by psychologists and therapists, and if not having a bed was psychologically damaging, then they wouldn't have suggested that.
Hey there, everybody. So I want to talk to you about something that I am so excited about, and that is that JetMatch is now sponsoring Sidebar. Many of our true crime fans will know a DNA test can actually help fight /side. And Ruby Franke and her business partner.
Yeah, guys, I'm not getting paid from that. So
Jody Hildebrand, they had been working together at an organization called Connections. It's like a service offering therapy and guidance. In fact, Ruby was titled as a, quote, certified mental fitness trainer. Well, they are both arrested and each charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. This happened after Ruby's 2 children were found in Hildebrand's home. The son.
I'm laughing because of her self-appointed title. Did you all hear the self-appointed title?
And her business partner, Jody Hildebrand, they had been working together at an organization called Connections. It's like a service offering therapy and guidance. In fact, Ruby was titled as a, quote,
mental fitness trainer. Mental fitness trainer. This woman, allegedly, abused her children a lot. Taping them up, starving them, physical abuse, all kinds of stuff. Mental fitness trainer. You want a real mental fitness trainer? David Goggins, okay? Who's going to carry the boats? All right, let's watch this.
Certified mental fitness trainer. Well, they are both arrested and each charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. This happened after Ruby's 2 children were found in Hildebrand's home. The son, who actually escaped the home, ran to a neighbor who called 911. He was found emaciated with wounds, lacerations, evidence that he had been tied up. The daughter was reportedly found in similar condition. She was also taken to the hospital to be treated for malnourishment. And Kevin Franke has not been criminally charged, okay? According to his attorney, Randy Kester, not to be confused with Randy Hessler, who we'll get to in a minute. Randy Kester, who we've interviewed a few times at Law and Crime, Kevin was distraught. He denies any knowledge of this abuse. He had been living separately from Ruby for 13 months before her arrest. Here's what Kester told us.
Kevin very much loved his children and loved his wife and had a strong bond, an exceptionally strong bond with all of his kids. You've seen pictures of their family together. He was involved in all sorts of activities. He was a great dad. But Ruby felt like there were differences in their marriage, and at one point, in conjunction with Jody Hildebrand, it was sort of like, we have to separate to save our marriage. We'll keep working on our marriage, but for now, if we're gonna repair our marriage and be back together as a family, you have to be away.
What do you guys think about this, chat? Do you guys think that the Ruby Franke, that she was so much of a sociopath that she was like mentally manipulating her husband, or was her husband complicit in this? Do you think her husband knew that this was happening to this extent and was complicit, allowed this to happen? What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat there. Answer in the chat, because this is because this was going on for years, as we come to find out.
and you have to work on yourself and don't have contact with the kids. Don't have contact with me unless I initiate it. Oh, he was just horrified by what the reports were, and he actually went there to get his kids when he found out about this. He drove all the way to southern Utah, which is 250 miles, and met with law enforcement and gave statements and made an effort to try to get his kids out of that mess.
Yeah, so according to Kester, Ruby told Kevin to stay away, not be around the kids. And when we asked Kester why Ruby and Kevin separated, he said probably shouldn't get into it, but they had a difference of opinion about their family, specifically parenting and their own personal dynamic. Now, when we talk about Kevin filing for divorce, that's a big component. By the way, Kester also explained that prior to Ruby's arrest, she actually called Kevin.
She had heard what was going on and knew they were coming for her, and called him and said, "This is an emergency," even though she hadn't reached out to him for months and months and months before that. She reached out to him when it was an emergency, knowing she could rely on him to help his kids. All he knows is he got a text from her that said, "Emergency, need to speak with you." He was at work and text back and said, "I'm at work. What's up?" And she said, "I need to speak to you immediately."
Now, she didn't directly say the police were coming. Nonetheless, it's pretty fascinating that she called him before her arrest to come get the kids. Now, in terms of the conflict in their marriage, Kester indicated that Jody Hildebrandt definitely didn't help the situation.
I don't think he's made that parallel. I don't think that he believes that's what led up to this. But what I can say, at least it's my observation, that while the family may have had some struggles prior to Jody coming into their lives, it just kind of seems like to me, and this is my personal opinion, that once she got involved in their lives, it just destroyed his family. The focus has been on Kevin. Where was he? Why was he absent? How does that all happen? So he was doing that at Ruby's direction, who I think was being directed by Jody. This is the way that you've got to repair your marriage and repair your family. So they were all sort of kind of being manipulated, and this is just my opinion, by Jody. And I think she knew what she was doing, and it was causing significant damage. And so when Kevin's critics are out there saying, where was he?
Yeah.
He was acting at the direction of what he thought was a competent mental health care provider and advisor. And to me, the better question is, what kind of mental health care provider would advise a family and a husband and wife and a husband and or a father and children that this can repair your family if you just stay away from each other? And I'm confident that she told that to Ruby. I'm confident that the children were being told that, and Kevin was certainly being told that I know what I'm doing.
Okay, so my problem is, so she tells them they got to split up. They're still abusing them. They're still abusing. Like the kid escaped. He was taped up. He had lacerations. Lacerations means cuts. He was emaciated. So he was starving. And the same with the daughter. Tired, starving. Dehydrated. Taped. The two youngest. So regardless if the mental health specialist, that the one he's talking about, had told them to separate, what about all the abuse? Allegedly. Regardless of the separation, they were already taken away. I mean, as you heard before, the beds had to sleep on the hard floors. They got to. You didn't make up your lunch. You're not going to eat. I'm not bringing you food. Because there's a growing sect in America where these people are like, we shouldn't worship the kids. It's us. It's about us, the parents. It's not about the kids. Literally, it's a growing sect in America. Instead of building up the next generation, they're there. We're gonna give them this, and they have to do this, But we're the ones, you know, we're the important ones. They're important too, but you know, us first.
You need to stay away.
And by the way, at the same time as Kevin
That's not how I raise my kids, by the way.
filed for divorce, as we talked about in a previous sidebar, he is actually seemingly petitioning a state legislator in Utah to change the law in the state to create more stringent requirements for mental health counselors, seemingly implying, at least to me, that what his wife was doing as part of her work with Connections maybe wasn't right. But Kevin Franke files for divorce on Wednesday, November 29th, while his wife is locked up behind bars awaiting trial. And to talk about this, now let me bring in high-profile Atlanta divorce attorney and founding partner of KS Family Law, a 30-person family law firm in Atlanta, Randy Kessler.
Oh, snap.
Randy, so good to see you. I think this is your first time on Sidebar. Am I right?
Yeah, I've been on with you for, it's been a while since I've seen you, and we've done stuff, but yeah, not on Sidebar, and it's good to be here with you.
Good to be here as well. You picked a name that couldn't confuse people more. This is Randy Kessler, not Randy Kester, who is representing Kevin Franke. Now, you've represented a lot of clients over the years, including celebrities and athletes. So Kevin Franke files this petition for divorce and a domestic relations injunction in Utah's 4th Judicial District. We are going to get to that injunction in a minute. First, talk about the divorce. We don't have any details. It's completely private. Is that normal that we don't have any details about the actual divorce petition?
Well, generally nationwide, it's not common, right? Divorce, public has a right to know. That's why, there's people in the courtroom watching if you want, open door policy. Utah has some special rules, and about 10 years ago, they said that only certain documents, like the final agreement and the final divorce, should be made public. But in this case, it seems like they wanted it sealed. They asked to keep it sealed and keep it private, and the judge agreed. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Of course, public speculation. I could argue both sides, like you could too, Jesse. Sometimes letting the public know, you find other witnesses you might never have found, so you may lose something having it sealed. But when you have high-profile cases, it's probably better to keep it sealed, keep it quiet, so you can focus on the law, the evidence of that.
That's also what I'm really confused about. How is this a high-profile case? So she's got 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Does that make it high profile? What was her impact and reach? Listen, 2 million subscribers on YouTube is huge. It's astronomical, especially to me because I don't have it. But is it maybe the torture that makes it high profile? And she had 2 million, and people were literally just eating the information out of this woman and that other person who was a psychologist. I don't know. What do you guys think? What makes this a high profile? Is it the abuse? What do you guys think? Could be. I mean, could be whatever.
That case, not the public noise.
Is there anything in that filing that could jeopardize Ruby's rights in her criminal case?
It may not jeopardize her rights, but it may jeopardize her position. Is he going to be a defendant of hers? Is he going to defend his wife in the criminal case? Or are they on the outs? He's filing for divorce, so obviously something's not right in Mayberry. But, it's when you have a civil case, it's really interesting, Jesse, because in criminal cases, there's a lot you can't do, right? You can't take depositions, certain discovery you can't do. Now that there's a civil case, you can start to do a lot, and a lot will depend on how does he really feel about her? Does he want to help her in the criminal case, or does he want to hurt her? She's still the mother of his children,
That's an interesting question, because let's say we don't know when this criminal trial is eventually going to happen. But let's say he finalizes the divorce before the criminal trial. Could he be called as a witness against her? Because we know that there's some sort of privilege, right, between a husband and a wife, and whether they can be compelled to testify against another. If they are fully divorced by the time her criminal trial starts, what happens then?
So my understanding is that the privilege still applies as to what your status was when the conduct occurred. They can't say, what did you tell your then husband? What did you tell your then wife? They can both agree to waive that privilege. They may do that. She may want him to explain or to be an alibi or to say that I didn't do this. The reason this child was treated this way was because of some other person's influence. But unless they both waive that privilege, my understanding is you can only talk about things that happened when you weren't married. So things that
I'm glad he brought that up. That's a very interesting. So I think because of what he just said. And it's not just me. I've talked to a couple other people that are looking at this trial because, to be honest, I didn't even know this was happening until about a month or so ago when she was going in for her, to get sent to jail or whatever. Whatever it is. They brought her in. They're like, okay, you are accused of this. Whatever. Because the trial's coming up. So, some people have speculated. I also think this might happen. We all think she's going to turn on that girl, and she's going to try to put all the blame of everything on the psychologist. Do you think she can beat all of her allegations if she puts all the blame on the psychologist? What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think?
That happen after the divorce is finalized. So I think the privilege will remain intact for the relevant time periods.
What are some of the grounds, as far as you know, in Utah to file for a divorce? Again, we don't have the details, but what could be some of the reasons that he filed?
So there's two things, right? There's the emotional reason, why does he want a divorce? And then there's the legal basis. And every state now has the right to get a divorce based on no fault, right? You don't need to have fault to have a divorce. And every divorce almost across the country gets granted on the grounds that one person wants to divorce. That's the no-fault basis. So there are reasons you can get a divorce for a lot of reasons. Of course, Utah's got some special rules about maybe you can marry a few people down in Utah. But you don't have to plea that you want it because of adultery or because of child abuse or cruel treatment. That may be why he wants a divorce, but the judge is going to take the easy way out in the divorce. They always do, which is, sir, do you want a divorce? Is your marriage over? Yes. I don't need to know anything else in order to give you the divorce. And when you go to dividing property and money and awarding custody of children, then the judge can start to talk about, well, what did she do wrong? What's the misconduct? But as far as the basis for the divorce, all he has to do is say, my heart, I can't live with her anymore. My marriage is irretrievably broken. The judge is obligated to grant him a divorce. So it's sort of an interesting nuance there.
That's interesting. I do want to talk about this domestic relations injunction that's part of this filing. So let me go through different parts of it. You tell us what it means. Part of the injunction emphasizes that the two parties cannot harass, intimidate, or disturb the peace of the other party by any means, including electronically. What does that mean?
So it means you can't go out and badmouth. You can't post things and say the other person is this criminal, this horrible person. It's a very good order. But I do want to point out that this was granted at the same time as he filed. This wasn't like they had a hearing and the judge decided one side had already done that. This is a preventative measure. It's a good measure. It keeps people from escalating things publicly or privately. But it means that you can't go out and say bad things and do bad things and paint the other person horribly, or you will then not only be doing something bad, you'll be violating that injunction. You'll be violating a court order. And then you're subject to the contempt powers of the court. So it is a powerful order.
Isn't she in a weakened position, though, because she's behind bars, right? I mean, he files while she's locked up. How does that change the dynamic of all this and what we're about to get into?
Yeah, it's sort of easy to be on the side where you walk in and say, Judge, I want a divorce, and the judge sees the other person in jail. You're usually going to look at me and my client and say, what can I do for you? Because you're on the side of right. You do have an advantage. And she's also got the criminal case pending, and her lawyer is telling her not to talk, not to say anything that might jeopardize that case. So it's a double whammy for her. She's really not, what's more important to her, her freedom or maybe getting a little bit of alimony or, she's probably not going to say anything.
There's another part in the injunction that says they cannot commit domestic violence or abuse against the other party or a child, which I got to say, considering what she's accused of, it kind of sent shivers down my spine. Now, it doesn't seem that she's going to be in any position.
No,
again, she's accused
in jail,
of abusing
yeah.
children. She doesn't seem to be in any position to be able to abuse them further, right, while she's locked up. Although I do wonder what you take from that because, it's such an there's nothing different about this injunction. It's pretty standard, right, pro forma. But
right.
That aspect, what do you make of that?
Well, it's pretty interesting. It's sort of like saying you are not allowed to do illegal drugs. Well, you're not allowed to do illegal drugs anyway, even with
facts. I wonder if they added that specifically because, it kind of adds and paints the picture, just like what he's saying, You're not allowed to do illegal drugs. You're not allowed to abuse kids. But I wonder if they added that specifically to this paper so that they can make it, obviously this is going to be on the sidebar thing. So if this could make it onto national television as saying, do not abuse children. So it just paints her more as a child abuser. Which, I mean, the evidence is, hey, they went in there and they found a child being abused, or children being abused. Anyway, what do you guys think about that?
Without a court order. So it's really the court just reminding people going through a divorce, especially these people, not only should you not do it, you now have a court order that you specifically shall not do this. And not only will you be punished for committing a crime if you do it, it's easier to punish somebody for violating a court order. It's a lot easier to say, look, judge ordered you not to do this stuff and you did it. So whatever crime prosecution may bring against you, you're now violating my civil court order to not do this. So it gives an extra reason to be safe and really just to err on the side of caution. If there's something that you consider discipline, you better be really sure that it's proper discipline.
Well, that's what's so interesting. People look at this case, and although Kevin Franke has not been criminally charged or implicated, he and his wife were criticized back in the day for the videos. So now the fact that he would never be in a...
I need to do a video on that. There is a whole video of just all the years and time spans and the videos, like literally the video after video after video after video of just the clips of the abuse and suggested abuse. And actually, a lot of it looks like abuse. Looks like it. So I need to do a reaction to that going into the trial, because that's crazy. I might do that reaction tomorrow. We'll see.
Like you said.
What do you guys... Let me know in chat if you guys want me to do the reaction to that. Because that's some crazy stuff.
If he ever abused the children moving forward, he'd get in trouble. But now that this has been put in place as well, look, from a...
By the way, there is a lot of videos on the 8 passengers. And they would just film the 8 passengers. They wouldn't even take it out. They could have taken the discipline out. They could have taken the abuse out, but they kept it in there. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway.
PR perspective, I look at it as his attorney
do the reaction. You got it.
Had no idea what was going on to his kids. He was just as shocked as everybody. Now he is divorcing this person who was doing this to the kids. From a PR perspective and a legal perspective, it seems like the right move and not a surprising move. But there now seems to be, extra emphasis put on to the well-being of those children.
Right. I agree with you 100%. It sort of insulates him a little more because, when the fingers start pointing at him, and we see other trials where there are family members that get implicated. Well, if you didn't agree with what mom did and you didn't have anything to do with it, why are you still married to her? It's so easy in America to get a divorce. If you're so offended like the rest of us, just file for divorce. He has to check that box at a minimum, and filing for divorce certainly checks that box.
Okay. So just to push back a little bit on that, this lawyer obviously knows that they're Mormon and they're devoutly Mormon, and that the Mormon Church is very tight knit. So as a devout Mormon, it's not a very light thing to get the divorce. So, but what do you do in that situation? You don't want your children to be abused. What do? You just keep arguing and arguing and arguing? I mean, I can understand the mental chains that he was under because of his faith. And then he was put with this person. He chose this person to get married to this person. And this person is just diabolical, allegedly, to all of his children. What do you guys think? Should he have gotten an early divorce? What do you guys think? I think so.
Insulates him a little bit publicly, and maybe to the prosecution. If I was a prosecutor and he didn't file for divorce, why are you sticking by her?
Well, I do think it's interesting. It's not like he filed for divorce back in 2016, right? When they were both when these videos were happening. He said he hadn't been living there for 13 months, and she's with Jody Hildebrandt. So the idea that he didn't know what was going on, sees all this, it makes sense, and I could see how that could be an advantage. Now, this one I thought was really interesting.
He hasn't been living there for 13 months when this stuff started happening, which was back in September? or months. Was it August, September? When the child escaped and he had the tape wrapped around him. You know what? I can just look it up. This is all being recorded anyway, so who cares? September 1st? August. Okay, so it happened back in August. Her child literally escaped. He was, and the neighbor started crying. You should hear that. The neighbor started crying because he saw a child with tape on him, cuts on him, and starving, dehydrated, tired, caused by his own mother, and his sister was still being abused. So yeah, it's a mess, and this Let's continue. So back in August. So he hadn't been there for 13 months. I don't know if that was up till August and then 13 months behind, because the videos, I guess we're going all the way back to 2016, and you could start to see these things play out in real time, like the actual, gaslighting and the mental torture and then the physical torture that she starts doing to these children. It starts playing out in real time. So who knows what was happening behind the scenes? Allegedly.
In the injunction, it says you cannot use the other person's name, likeness, image, or identification to get credit, open an account for service, or obtain a service. What's that about?
See, I love that one. I wish that was in every order and every divorce across the country and across the world, because what happens when someone files for divorce is you're allowed to take people's names off of bank accounts, and families may have a joint bank account.
Oh.
What happens to the person that's left without any funding? Sometimes they go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to sign up for a credit card and use my husband's credit or use my wife's credit, and that's just not right. That's what the court's saying is, don't think about it. I know this is common. This is something that's going to enter your mind because it's happened before in divorce cases. Do not go out. You now are on your path to becoming strangers. You will be legal strangers. You will be independent people. You can no longer apply for credit in the spouse's name. Truth is, even during a marriage, you shouldn't do it without your spouse's permission, right? But now it makes it a court order. It makes it harder to do with more consequences if you do it.
What about this one? They cannot cancel or interfere with telephone, utility, or other services used by the other party, and they can't cancel or change any shared insurance policies, like in health insurance or auto insurance, without permission from the other party.
All of these provisions, you can go to the court and ask for special permission to do this, or you can ask the other side to do this. I think this is really just a question of historical situations the court has found itself in, where someone comes to the court and says, Judge, he cut me off the cell phone and now I can't go pick up my child in an emergency. So now the Utah courts have decided that we're going to make it that you cannot cut someone off of cell phone or textability unless the other side agrees, or unless the court gets involved and says, okay, I understand why. Basically, we like to keep the status quo. Judges don't want to be dealing with little minor emergencies. Keep it the way it was. Don't change anything unless y'all can agree to it, or come to me. I'll listen and I'll make a decision as the judge. It sort of keeps law and order a little bit better than if you didn't have anything in place.
That makes sense. And we've been talking so far about kind of the what they can't do to each other. I want to talk about the children. So there's another part that talks about property and certain rules to abide by, but then it talks about the children. And it says one of the things that the Frankies are also prohibited from doing, or I should say, Kevin and Ruby, they are prohibited from making derogatory comments about each other in front of the children. They also can't influence the children about custody. They can't involve them in the divorce or do anything that would affect their love of the other parent.
Oh.
So why in the world would a judge feel a need to issue such an order? You think that's ever happened in the history of people? It's just such common sense. We look at it as outsiders. It's not my case or your case, Jesse. But you look at it as objective people, and we say, that's common sense. Why would you do that? It's not good for the children. But being a divorce lawyer for 35 years, people do it. They say to their children, and also if you think your wife is bad or your husband is bad, you can get your children to agree with you. Some people think, well, see, I must be a good person because the children agree with me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You want to persuade them. It's not healthy for the child, but it's just a common human trait to say, listen, I'm on the side of right, your mother's on the side of bad. And the courts are saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And now it's a court order not to do it. Not just common sense, not just good parenting. It's a court order. It brings it to a whole nother level.
The problem, I mean, if you had two civilians, I get it. But when you have one of those parents accused of abusing the children, she's locked up in jail. She's innocent until proven guilty. But you have potentiality of any of those children becoming witnesses or Kevin Franke becoming a witness. I feel like that complicates that prohibition.
Well, they'd have to make the kids witnesses. I'm sure the kids are going to be brought up there a lot. The kids are the ones getting abused. I feel so... Okay, chat, do you guys feel bad for the kids? I feel bad for the kids. I feel bad for the kids. I'm not sure about the husband because I just don't know. Because this woman maliciously, allegedly, went after her kids. I know so many good Mormons that would never ever treat their kids like this. And then you've got Ruby Franke. What do you guys think about the kids? You guys sad about the kids? I'm sad about the kids. I'm so sad about those kids.
You know, there is a dilemma because what happens, for instance, in a normal divorce, or even in this divorce, when dad says, I can't pick you up today, and the children say, why? You're not supposed to say, because I have court against your mother? You know, you want to be honest. You don't want to lie to your children. So there's
Let me take you into the scenario for that 12-year-old child for a second. A 12-year-old child decided on his own free will to escape his oppressive, abusive mother. He is starving to death. He is cut. He's taped. He had to rip open his tape. The tape's still on his body. And he had to escape out of his house to get to his neighbors to ask for help. The little 12-year-old boy is dying. And this woman has 2 million subscribers, or had 2 million subscribers on YouTube. This woman was a mental wellness trainer, or a mental wellness coach, mental fitness coach. And that was her fitness was to destroy her family, destroy her kids. Think about the 12-year-old's mindset to leave the house. I gotta go. My mom is not gonna help me. She's trying to kill me. I can't trust the person that brought me into this world. I gotta go. And he thinks that's normal. So he's going off into a world that he has no idea what's out there. He gets over to his neighbors. His neighbors start crying because they know how evil this is. They know how wrong this is. And the cops knew it too. As soon as they heard it, they went in there and they saved that other kid. And arrested those two monsters.
a balance. And I think what the court is basically saying is don't badmouth the other side. Don't unnecessarily involve the children. But obviously, it's okay. And I, what my clients use, and I try to convince them to use therapists and get some therapeutic help from a therapist to say, how do we address this with the children? What's best for the children? And I think if you say to a judge, the reason I explained it to the child is because the children's therapist told me this was the best way to do it, or they needed to know, I think the judge would be okay with it. Just to go out there and say, I'm going to tell my side of the story to the children.
Comb your beard if you hate the dad, you got it.
Right, she's wrong. That's what courts don't like, and I think that's what this is trying to do. Don't involve the children unless absolutely necessary for some logistical reason.
Yeah, it's definitely complicated here. There's another part of it that I thought was interesting where you can't take the children on non-routine travel unless written consent from the other party or a court order. She is in jail. Is there any way she can block when Kevin takes the children?
This just paints her even, she's in jail. I think they added a lot of this stuff, as I said previous. about, you cannot abuse your children. Obviously you can't. But now you can't take your children to travel, because you don't want to, skip country. She's in jail. She's not getting out of jail. She's going straight into the trial from jail. This is just something that to put in there so that the entire world can see. It's just helping the dad out, and I don't think he's as guiltless as he's portraying himself to be.
Children?
No, but now there's a court order that says, and really the reason for this, Jesse, is sometimes people kidnap children. They take their own children,
Yep.
They move, and they sit up in California or Oregon or wherever they are for a few months. And then they say, well, Judge, I've already been living here. Why don't you just let me keep the kids here? That changes the facts on the ground. It's not fair to the other side. So they're trying to say, basically, vacations are okay if you have a Christmas trip that you usually do with grandma.
No, I'm not Mormon, but I have a lot of Mormon friends, and none of them treat their kids like this. None of them. The kids are actually really nice. They've never been taped or their beds taken away or starved. Actually, some of them look about like me, so they ain't starved.
Grandma down in Florida, that's fine, but you're not allowed to change the situation so that when you come in front of me as the judge, I have to say, oh, the children have been in New York for the last 3 months? Well, why are we going to change their lives? That's not fair to the other side. So it's a generic, useful provision, but you're absolutely right. She's not taking them anywhere anyway. This can only hurt him. If he had a trip that he wanted to take, he's now got to ask permission.
So if I'm understanding it correctly, because I am not a divorce law expert by any means, is there anything unusual about this filing or this paperwork from that you've seen in other cases?
I don't think so. I mean, the fact that it exists, and sometimes you have to ask the court to add that standard order. The thing that makes me think that it's not so unique to this case is that it went into play as soon as the case was filed. There was no opportunity. I don't think that the husband and his lawyer went to the judge and said, Judge, let me tell you about this case. I need some emergency relief. Put something in here. Had it been like that, then the provisions would have been against her. They would not have been neutral. So I don't think it's terribly, imposing that. It's not telltale that mom did something wrong and that's why the judge imposes. I think the judge just said, this is a divorce. Some interesting issues. I'm going to make sure nobody messes around.
We talked about it a little bit, but just to put a bow on it, why do you think Kevin Franke filed for divorce at this point in time?
Wow. In 35 years, I'm still trying to figure out why people file, when they file, what is that last straw? Sometimes I just woke up this morning and I realized I couldn't do it anymore. Maybe he was hoping against hope that she would be vindicated and that she would be the person that he loved. And he finally realized that wasn't the case. Maybe he's been planning it, or maybe he's just being strategic. I think if he wanted a divorce and he's known it, he probably should have done it a long time ago. There's so many different excuses and explanations, and the mother of their children. Some people don't want their children to grow up in a divorced family, even though mom's in jail. At least the children have an intact, legally family. It's impossible to answer. Just so many answers to that question. Unless I'm in the room with him.
Yeah.
It's hard.
But doesn't it make it seem like either A, he really doesn't believe her, that she, or assuming she's she says she's completely innocent, that he thinks she did all this, or B, he doesn't think she's getting out, or C, like you said, it could be a financial kind of benefit, a kind of financial kind of strategy. It just seems from her legal case perspective, based on what we're hearing from his attorney, and kind of the comments, that he is not siding with her at all.
Yeah, it doesn't help her. And you've covered so many criminal cases where the spouse is the one person that still believes in the defendant, and they come forward and they're giving interviews and they're saying he's an innocent man or she's innocent. They certainly don't have this anymore. This is not a good sign for her. I mean, absolutely. You don't want to be in jail when your whole world's falling apart, and then one more thing falls, which is, at least I have my husband. At least he believes in me. At least we're still married. Now that's gone too. It's just not a good place for her.
Randy Kessler, so good.
I gotta be honest. I really don't care what kind of good place she's in. Am I the only one? I don't know. I've got no compassion. As a dad, I've got no compassion for anybody that abuses their children. I've got none. You want to abuse your children? I've got no compassion for you. None. especially starving them and then thinking you're like some sort of god over your children. That's disgusting to me. There's correcting behavior, and then there's straight up abuse. Consistent, constant abuse. Starving your kids? No. Anyway, that's the end of this. What do you guys think about this situation? What do you guys think about Ruby, Frankie? What do you guys think about this divorce? What do you guys think about the dad who is trying to scapegoat his way out? Which, he might be innocent. Anyway, that's the end of this nonsense. But I'll do another reaction tomorrow with just the clips of the videos that look bad. That's going to be an interesting one. I feel like both involved. Facts. Hey, let's go through the comments real quick. I feel like both involved. I think it's messed up. Facts. Hi, hey. Comb your beard if you hate the dad. I was combing my beard. I don't like the dads. Yeah. You should do a glitter beard, Lindsay. I'll think about that. Dang, the situation is interesting and crazy. Facts, Emir. You love combing your beard, Glazing King. I do, actually. Is your name Glazing King? I don't know. They are from Utah. Well. Don't know what that means. What do you think about baby? Who? Don't think you could show that. Show what? The dad is not innocent. Give him a sentence too. Divorced way before this whole situation escalated. That's where they should have. Yeah, facts. Don't think he wants to lose half of his fortune, but letting your kids get treated like that is crazy. Facts. Hi, hey. Why don't all states file for children's rights? That's a good question. I'm not too sure. But anyway, that's going to be the end of that. Appreciate you guys. Going to go ahead and upload this to YouTube. And what do you guys think about this situation? Crazy. Well, where's... There it is.